Hello, everyone. My name is Martin Nyanzu. Welcome to the Unsettled podcast, a podcast for those looking for answers. On this episode, I'm joined by three wonderful young people who are going to join me to talk about cancel culture. I have here with me Eunice Treme. She's an author. She has a book out published in 2022 titled Ama in Ghana. Eunice is a technologist and an entrepreneur. She is a leader in inclusion and diversity. Very relevant to what we're going to talk about. She serves as a global communications lead for Black Employee Network at her job. Eunice has a bachelor's of art in information technology, informatics from Rutgers University. I also have here with me Stephanie Quatson, a student from Rutgers University New Brunswick campus. She has a bachelor's in School of Arts and Science, bachelor's in the School of Arts and Science, History and Biology. I also have here with me Daniel Annan from CUNY School of Medicine, BS in Biomedical Sciences. He is a medical candidate for 2026. Welcome to Unsettled Podcasts. Well, let's hear your voices.
Oh, thank you for the welcome.
Yes,
yeah, thanks for having us.
I hope you are settled.
Indeed.
Or you are getting settled. Yeah. Thank you for joining me, making time to be here. I really appreciate all of you coming to join me on Unsettled Podcast. We are going to talk about cancel culture. What's going on these days in your culture, your generation? You guys are getting unsettled. Okay, let's start. We want to talk about cancel culture. What is cancel culture? Eunice, let me start with you.
Sure. I have a definition I put together.
All right.
And it is, in my opinion, social shaming to conform to the popular or ruling opinion. And this is primarily done on social media. So I've seen it firsthand on Twitter, Instagram, where once the majority gets wild on a topic, they go full force.
Wow. So for the most part, it's done online.
Yes.
But it can be done in person, right?
I believe so, but I think it's easier to navigate it online.
Yeah. So we have people sitting in the comfort of their homes, canceling people out.
Because it's difficult to do it when you're face to face with someone. But if you're behind the screen, you don't know the person, you don't see the person, you feel bold to say anything online.
So it's a type of cyberbullying.
I would say so.
What a generation. What do you think is cancel culture? Stephanie?
Just to piggyback off what she was saying, I think it's just people in agreement to disagree with one person's solid opinion. And honestly, it is just such a social media concept because if you do it in person, it's considered bullying, as you just mentioned. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Daniel, what's your take?
Yeah, just to add on to what was said earlier, I believe cancel culture is when the majority cancels or discriminates, rather, against a certain person for an action that they committed or something that they said. And this is in agreement with the majority. Now, what they're being canceled for, I personally believe 9 times out of 10 is not something that is worthy of the term cancel or cancellation or being, chastised greatly by the social media public. But it's just, something that's popular at the time or another movement or wave that is currently ongoing and they are being supported by it.
Yeah, so interestingly, cancel itself means to put an end to something. So when you're canceled, that means we've ended you. And really, that's what it is. When a person is canceled, now, I want us to separate the person from the idea, because I think there's something going on when people talk about cancel culture. Let's talk about that. Is it the person we're canceling, or is it the idea we're canceling, or which one?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I want to go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, I was going to say it's more so the idea or the opinion that's being shared, because 9 times out of 10, the people that are canceling the person don't know anything about them, but it's because they disagree with whatever that person's saying, and they are already offended by the opinion that's being put forth before them. It's more so, okay, well, I don't agree with you, and I really don't know who you are, but I'm just going to gather people together and disagree with you, even though they might be right.
Mm-hmm. And to also add, I think it's mostly the idea, the ideology behind it. But in the instance where like people have a personal agenda against someone, it's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So, and in preparation for this topic, like I was thinking about myself personally. And I remember there was a time where I went on my Twitter and then like I looked for like keywords that are, controversial. And I searched it up with my username to make sure that those tweets were deleted. Because, if someone was to find a former tweet of mine that was not within the constraint of what is norm, I can easily get canceled. And so I remember going back to find my tweets and delete. So,
Wow.
who know what middle school Eunice said that could get her canceled in 2023.
But that's the point. If you can get canceled today for something you said 5 years ago, that are we saying you've not matured today? Are you the same Eunice 5 years ago now? That whatever you did 5 years ago, we're going to hold against you now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a challenge with canceling people for something they've done in the past.
Yeah.
When we do that, we're essentially saying that we are righteous, we are holy, we are complete, we don't make mistakes, we never made any mistake in the past. So if you said something 5 years ago, we're going to cancel you today.
Mm-hmm.
But I could have grown, matured. So there's no need to cancel someone who has evolved ideologically or in terms of character, right? But that's the point. Cancel culture normally deals with the past.
Yeah.
So they often go backwards to the past to see what you've done. Oh, in the past you said, well, you hate black people. But now we don't know what you believe. But because you said in the past, we're going to cancel you. And we'll make sure you can lose your job or, something like that. Okay, I don't know what the rest of you have to say.
I was going to say that I think it's a bit of both. So, of course, anybody can be canceled, but with the way social media works today, it's usually heavy superstars or popular people in media and music industry that are being canceled. And although the topics that they're being canceled on are controversial to say the least, I think it's also they're pinpointing or targeting those specific people because of the great following that they have.
Yeah.
So if I am a musician and I have 5 million followers on Instagram and something that I said recently or within the past has been brought to light, you have now grabbed the attention of those 5 million followers. And if I want a certain agenda to be pushed for a certain movement or a certain belief, I am pushing it wide scale across all of their followers. So that's how they really grab the attention of mass populations at once by, going through someone's past, going through their history and finding something very specific, even if it's taken completely out of context. With social media and the internet, once something is put out there with a certain mindset, it's very hard to retract it or change how it was perceived after its initial posting. Yeah. So I do think that it targets both the ideology as well as the person, mostly priority on the idea, but the person definitely receives damage in the process as well.
Yeah, just to speak on the person, I remember there was a situation where this very prominent, she was in the UK, like social media, like makeup guru or whatever. Something happened to her and everybody knew she was trending, and people took that opportunity to start digging her up. And the comments that she made like several years ago literally had nothing to do with what she was dealing with at that moment. But because she was trending at the time, people also wanted to feel important by also saying, hey, let's just cancel her. She's getting too much spotlight. So let's also have our shine by taking this opportunity to dig up in her past and then cancel her altogether. So it could be that, as you mentioned, like a celebrity being targeted just because they're on the rise or they're trending. So you two, who nobody's talking about you, you'll take that opportunity to also have your shine too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, I think it's an ideology that brings, people into the place of being canceled. But you cannot cancel an idea. Jesus is the Son of God. It's an idea. You cannot. It's been around for 2,500 years and beyond. You can cancel Christians, but the idea Jesus is the Son of God can never be canceled.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot die.
That's right.
You can't put an end to it. So we cancel ideas, we cancel people, but it looks like canceling people becomes the target. The reason why people cancel people is because they don't want to open space for discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if we're saying 1 + 1 is 2, and I disagree with you, I have to show you that it is not 2.
Mm-hmm.
But because I cannot, I cancel you.
Mm-hmm.
So your idea of 1 + 1 being 2 is there. I disagree with you, but I'm going to put an end to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make sure that you lose your job, people hate you, you feel lonely and stuff like that. But 1 + 1 will still be 2, no matter what I think. So there is the ideological part, but then there's a personal attack
Definitely.
also, where people are losing their jobs and and things like that.
If I may jump in
go
here.
ahead.
I've seen this so many times in real time where someone says something crazy. And, whether you're on the opposing side or for the other side, it can be seen as a crazy idea. But I see people rally in excitement to how can we get this person to how can we bring this person down? They'll find their LinkedIn, they'll find where they work. They might even at times find out where they live.
Wow.
And I've seen it happen so many times where it's become a bit normal for me when I see these things happen, like the mob mentality that people take in to find a person, target them, and then have them lose their all. And I think one thing about the society that we live in, I think across all cultures, as much as people love to see people rise, they love when people fall.
Yeah, it gives them a sense of purpose just by doing that.
What you just said, the example you just gave and what you said, I'm going to piggyback on that because I did an episode a while ago about the fact that everybody is religious, right? And I was trying to look at the new forms of religion. What religion offers. Now, we have a lot of young people quitting the church, what we call the institutionalized form of religion. So forget about the church. Because people will criticize, they will judge you, they will tell you the truth, they'll make you feel uncomfortable, you feel offended. So let's forget about the church. Now, when they leave the church, because we are all spiritual beings, they cannot quit the church without connecting to some supernatural power, unless you say you're an atheist. So when they leave the church, where are they going? Now, when they leave the church, they join groups like that, where people find purpose, meaning. So it's some sort of moral solidarity they're finding, right? So they think the people counseling you, they actually think that they are the good guys. And they want to make sure they end this injustice and all of that going on. So they will join this group to cancel people out, and they think that they are the right people doing the right things. The reason why that is a sort of a new type of religion, depending on how scholars define religion, is that when people join these groups, they find purpose, they find meaning, they actually think they're doing something morally right, and they do this over and over again, so it becomes ritualistic.
Yeah.
And that's what religion offers. So a person who says, I quit church, I'm not religious, but will join these kind of tribes or groups and ritually cancel people out, and also basing it on some type of moral standard. It's actually religious then. They think they are. So all of you guys are religious, but you quit the church and claim you were not. What's happening here is that when they join these groups and cancel people out, there's some sort of affirmation, support, community, connectedness, which is what you find in the church. The local church gives you meaning, connectedness, and all of that, except that the church will tell you the truth. So you feel judged. But when you go to these groups, they won't judge you. Actually, you are more comfortable within these kind of spaces. But yeah, people are losing their job. Doctors, nurses, celebrities, Christian musicians, Christian lawyers, workers, all kinds of people are losing their job because of these things.
If I may ask a question.
Yeah.
I know the topic here is cancel culture, but at times, can we say that we understand where this mob mentality is coming from? Example, I saw a video of where this nurse, she was mistreating a patient, and the internet found out, and they basically attacked this nurse, verbally. They tried to get her fired. They did get her fired. They were successful. But what the nurse was doing was wrong. Is there a better approach when it comes to these things? Because social media is here. What then do we do?
Yeah, I think cancel culture, in totality, has its good and bad side. Mm-hmm. But then altogether, it's bad. The good side is that, like you just said, a nurse is maltreating a patient. We found out, so we're going to cancel you. Now, where is second chance? Where is forgiveness? Yeah. Something the Bible teaches. Mm-hmm. Now, we're not saying what the nurse did is right. So in that sense, yeah, we cancel. But how do we appropriate canceling a person for what they've done? Okay, somebody is still pushing racism or treating people bad at the health facilities and all of that. We found out, yeah, we fire you. People get fired all the time. Even before cancel culture became a thing, people will still lose their jobs. Right. I mean, we have senators and congressmen and women who do something bad and they come out, you know what, I quit. I resign. Mm-hmm. They've canceled themselves out. So because there are moral standards, people get canceled all the time. It's not something new. It's old. But when we talk of cancel culture, the way we're talking about it now, what we're saying is that whether we verify what you've done or not, we're going to cancel you. Mm-hmm. And if actually you're wrong, we're actually going to cancel you, that you have no life. We'll make sure you lose your job. Nobody will hire you anymore. You'll not be fit for society any longer. But who among us is without sin to cast the first stone? So you see, this cancel culture is what the church has been preaching for a long time. Except that in the church, when you get disciplined or suspended, you go through a process of restoration. Yeah. So you're disciplined and then you're restored. When the culture disciplines you or cancels you or suspends you, there is no restoration.
That's true.
So what is the culture doing? The culture is learning from the church, but it's saying that we don't want to be religious. We hate do this, do that, boxing us in a church setting. Let's bring it out to the community, in the society, where we cancel people, but there's no form of restoration. So that's actually religion. Yeah. It's a form of religion that says that you are wrong, we are right. They have some standard of truth, morality. But whose standard? Whose truth? So this mob mentality, on whose truth are they basing their, what they're doing? That's the issue. So everything comes back to the scriptures, comes back to what is true and who determines the truth. So there's some type of pride in that mob mentality that, yeah, you're wrong, we're going to cancel you, and there's no grace for you. But those people within the mob, when they go wrong, would they want somebody to extend grace to them? Even if they've confessed that they're really wrong, would they want to receive grace? Yeah. Everybody will want to receive grace. Even when they know they are wrong, they will still want somebody to extend grace to them. That is why the story of Jesus continues to play back in the way we live, in the reality of our human existence. Very, very important. Okay, we are going to take a break here. We're having a wonderful discussion. We'll come back and I will continue our discussion on cancel culture. Stay tuned.
Our culture is shaped in part on college campuses. It is the place where some young Christians go to get extremely unsettled in their faith journey. There are numerous worldviews on our campuses competing with the Christian worldview. There are college professors who provoke students and make them feel intellectually assaulted with regards to matters of faith. Real Answers is our answer to this problem. If you are a college student leader, you can go to our website, liveunsettled.org/program, and book us today or email us at info@liveunsettled.org. We cover topics from the various competing worldviews that unsettle the minds of your students. There will always be a Q&A session after each presentation to model before your students in real time how they can graciously defend their faith in a hostile and confused culture. We are looking forward to your invitation for an event in person or virtually. Any good argument has to stand a simple test. Does it measure up? Does the idea hold any weight, or does it blow away with the slightest breeze? Measure Up helps students at the local church to develop a well-formed faith that stands the test of time and every challenge the ages may throw at it. If your local church would like to host a Measure Up training event, you can book us by going to our website, liveunsettled.org/programs, or you can email us at info@liveunsettled.org. We can train your local church on how to graciously handle tough and soft questions ranging from apologetics, theology, biblical interpretation, gender issues, truth, and philosophy, all grounded in biblical worldview. Our goal is to walk side by side with the local church to bridge the gap between faith and doubt. You can book us today.
Okay, we are back to the Unsettled podcast. I still have here with me Daniel, Stephanie, and Eunice. We've been talking about cancel culture, how it's applied, what's going on there, and things we can learn from cancel culture. I want us to take it from this angle. See, when somebody brings up an idea that you disagree, before cancel culture became a thing, what do you think we normally would have done or would do? If somebody brought an idea,
Have a conversation.
Yeah.
have a conversation.
Discussion.
And how do you think the conversation would normally go? It could go both ways or several ways. Give us an example.
I would think a debate.
Okay.
So one side presents their argument, and then the other side has the chance to oppose. But if we're being realistic, these conversations aren't usually that civil. It's just a lot of yelling over each other and seeing who can yell the longest, really, or the loudest. But definitely a conversation is held where both sides are presented, and then it would just be a back and forth to see who can oppose the other argument till the very end. And it's like a battle of the last man standing, really.
Yeah. So you see, in the mainstream culture, right, we yell at each other like we're debating. And the person who yells the most or argues think that they've won. So that's there. But when you also go into the academic setting, debate is debate. There's nothing like yelling over each other. I mean, you have a group of students listening to you, so you better behave and then present your case. So debating is one way that if you disagree with somebody, one route to go. We debate, you present your case, I present my case, and let the best argument based on fact and truth win. When we engage in cancel culture, it makes public discourse very difficult.
Yeah.
Because now there is social confusion. You're saying you're right, I'm saying I'm right. You're not willing to listen to me, I'm not willing to listen to you. So we find ourselves in this kind of social chaos, and our society will get damaged if we do that. Okay, what other ways? What do you think when you disagree with somebody? Before cancel culture became cancel culture, how would we have gone about this, apart from debates? Anything
Just
else?
like a simple discussion, like just to express, each side being given the opportunity to express their differences and coming to the conclusion, like, listen, even if I don't agree with you, I'm at least letting you speak your opinion, and also my opinion is being shared. So we know that, okay, we are different in our opinions, but we at least have the opportunity to share our differences with each other. So yeah, I would say discussion.
Yeah. And I think one healthy way in conversation and discussion is to provide citations. That's something that me and my friends will be doing. They'll be giving me an idea or a thought, and I'll ask them, okay, so show me where this source is coming from. And they'll be like, here it is, Eunice. I'll be like, okay, like, you got me. Like, here's the information. So I think that's a healthy way when you can back up what you're saying. And even as Christians, like, all of us have different interpretations at times of the text, hopefully not on the important things. But I do know that there are many denominations that have different ways of interpreting the text. But, in conversation, you'll ask that individual, okay, show me the scripture, and they'll talk about it. So that's how it should be.
Exactly. And that's how we have civil discourse, okay? I agree with you, I disagree with you. Okay, show me your facts or give me something. Sometimes in our culture, even sometimes parents and their children, a parent will say something and they don't want the child to question it or ask anything. They don't want to show any proof or anything because they've said it. It's true. Well, that's not true. And if we continue on that path, that's where we have problems with stuff like cancel culture. Because the person is not willing to listen to you. Right. They are saying that you are a bigot, you are a homophobe, just because you said there are two genders. So I disagree with you, and I'm going to cancel you out. I'm not willing to listen to you for you to prove to me why there are two genders, for me to also let you know why there are multiple genders. I'm not willing to explain to you why we have multiple genders. But I disagree with you that you're saying we have two genders. So I cancel you out. So it's like a parent saying to a child, well, because I've said this, it's true. But mommy, why? No, well, keep quiet. You've canceled the child. And if we do that, we're going to breed children like that when they grow up, who will not be interested in facts, truth, but they will just cancel people out just because they have an opinion that somebody disagrees with. So cancel culture, these are some of the implications. We have to learn to dialogue. And the best argument must win. Of course, based on truth and based on fact. Like you said, citations. When somebody says something that is true, it's not just because you said it. It's true. You should be able to demonstrate it. And I treat this in my book, The Truth About Truth. When somebody says something that is true, that they know for sure is true, they should be able to demonstrate that what I have said is true. For example, if we say that men can get pregnant or men can menstruate, well, it's not because I've said a man can menstruate. It's true. I should be able to prove it or demonstrate why I'm saying that men can get their period. So if I'm not able to demonstrate that, that means that I have a personal opinion. And there's a difference between opinions and facts. But some people try to push opinions as truth. Opinion can never be true. So we all have our own personal opinion, but we can never have our own personal facts. There's a difference. But cancel culture, what it does is that, well, we're going to cancel you out because we disagree with what you're saying. And the fact is that they are not just canceling you out, but they're also trying to shame you. So they cancel you and then they shame you. We're going to send a signal to you. We've canceled you out. By the way, you are watching. If you also do the same thing, you'll be canceled without any forgiveness or any restoration. So that's what's happening. You have something to say, Daniel?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. So while you were talking, I was thinking about how cancel culture really works. And earlier we were discussing whether we believe the main goal is the idea or the person. And I think that cancel culture actually does a disservice to the idea, because if cancel culture is trying to bring awareness to an idea, through awareness, you have to explain an idea, give facts about the idea, explain its importance. But in at least 90% of the cases that are related to cancel culture, there's no explanation of why the person is even being canceled, just the fact that what they were doing or what they said was wrong. So the idea even gets lost in the process, lost in translation. So how can awareness be brought to that idea in itself? And then before the break, when we were talking about the nurse getting fired, I think in instances like that with violence and police brutality and all those are instances of awareness. And that's the importance of social media, where it brings awareness to problems that are not getting enough light. But cancel culture is not really awareness. It's more just taking very minuscule fact or not even fact, opinion out of context and then exploiting it completely and destroying lives in the process, while your whole goal was not even achieved, really, if the goal was truly to bring awareness to an idea.
I mean, you're spot on. You see, we have laws, rules that work. So even if a nurse maltreated somebody, what should be done? You have to go to a due process. Yeah. That's part of the American...
Lose her license.
Exactly. So we've had standards of morality in this society. Yeah. Ways of canceling people appropriately. Yeah. So we don't go to a mob mentality kind of thing.
And
Go ahead.
I'm thinking at least in Western culture, society, that some of these things are by design. I'm trying to think through like my childhood. I'm going to school in America. And I'm thinking through like my English classes, my science classes, like the classes I've had, a lot of it was through one lens of perspective. I don't recall ever being like in a history class and my teacher giving me a book written by an American versus like, I don't know, what a German taught about like World War II. And so I think it's by design to have society think in a particular way where at the end of the day, we just fight amongst ourselves and we get nothing done. Because if you think about some of like example, at least the Greek and Roman civilizations, they flourished on debate and rhetoric. They flourished on ideas. You were, seen as a prominent person if you can articulate your ideas. But here in at least 21st century America, I think it's by design that people are limited in their view and their perspective and ways of thinking.
To add on, I think in the building, to go to a more historical point of view, in the building of this country, with liberation and all that, a lot of the emphasis was on freedom. And being that this country was built on freedom and the First Amendment being, freedom of speech and so on and so forth, there's a lot of that ties into a lot of issues that we see today, because in schools and everything, the emphasis is, well, I have the freedom to do this, I have the freedom to do that. So it's not really looking at the situation or the history holistically, but it's really just, as long as we have our freedom to say what we want and do what we want, everything is fine. And if we compare that to other countries in the world, such as, the Greek coming up, as you brought up, that wasn't necessarily the case. And basically almost everywhere in the world, compared to USA today, they don't have freedom of speech to do X, Y, Z. And, we may have these freedoms, but we also are, when we're looking at our rankings in English and math and science, like, we're not the best in the world. So these freedoms that we have, yes, they make us a great country, but you also have to ask yourself, are they working against us at the same time? It limits our ability to learn. It limits our ability to, have serious conversations, important conversations, to be able to grow, not only on an individual level, but as a society as a whole. If everybody is opposing each other, even within our government, you have, the left side and the right side and Democrats and Republicans. And at the end of the day, the government has to work together to reach a common goal for us to flourish as a nation. But if the common goal is to, belittle the other side or mitigate each other, then how can we even grow as a whole? And to go back to the second chances that Pastor was talking about earlier, I was thinking about the book of Acts when Paul was blinded by God. And Paul was, killing Christians and prosecuting Christians left and right. And God, being the father of Christians, he could have been completely within his right to prosecute or kill Paul for what he had done to his people. But instead, he blinded him and gave him a second chance to really turn his life around and now, proclaim the gospel and preach the word to literally all over. And that's exactly what Paul did. So who are we? If God is able to give a second chance to people, how much more can we just take it upon ourselves to cancel others for situations that we don't even fully understand? And that's the problem with cancel culture in itself. We're canceling people on topics that we're not even well-versed on, topics that we're not knowledgeable about. We just take one thing and run with it. And that's a problem with a lot of the ideas that we have in society today. We don't take the time to learn or read or make ourselves knowledgeable about anything. We hear one thing from a shaky source, not even we read it on Wikipedia
And then we'll go with it.
yeah, we read it on Wikipedia, then we go on it, or we're in a group. And right now, this podcast, one of you can say something, not to belittle anybody's ideas, but one of you can say something, and then I just run with the wind and take it in every conversation I go, but don't do my own due process on it. I don't educate myself on it. I don't prepare myself for future debates. And then when it's time to face the music and have a further discussion into it, now I'm,
You want to cancel people?
I want to cancel people, and I want to be coddled and say that my opinion matters more than yours. So it's a deep rooted issue into, I think, the history and upbringing.
I don't know if you have a question for us, but
Yeah, we actually are running out of time. So I wanted us to, sort of descend or kind of wrap up here. But I don't know if you had any thought on your mind. You can go. If not, I'll.
one last thought. For me personally, I've been trying to challenge myself when it comes to perspective and understanding particular topics. And I'll use one topic as an example. Growing up, especially in the context of America, I did not really understand what Palestine or Israel or the context around it. And if you consume certain media, CNN, BBC, you begin to have a particular perception. It wasn't until I read a book by a Palestinian-born woman who wrote about the conflict there and began to describe the historical context before I had an understanding. And her perspective completely dismantled everything I had known about this particular topic. So I think that we have to have the due diligence for us that want to be aware and good citizens and good brothers and sisters in Christ, those that want to be good people and responsible people in this world. We have to take the opportunity to challenge ourselves, our perspectives, our ways of growing, our ways of consuming information. And that's one thing that I've tried to do through literature and through understanding the other perspective.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to make a few comments. I'll let you guys have your last words. I'm just speaking based on the point we've made so far, right? For people who cancel other people, they actually think they are providing social justice. But they see a lot of injustice in the system. But the fact is that canceling people is not really what people think it is. It's not social justice. It's a form of control. So like you said, you sit in your home, you join some kind of mob, online, virtual mob, you canceling people, you make sure you lose your job, we'll make sure this happens to you and all of that. If you're actually bold, you will face the person one-on-one and have a dialogue, a civil discourse, so we can share ideas and see which one is authentic. But because I'm afraid of you, I hide behind the virtual space and then join some kind of group we cancel. So it's just a form of control and power. It's not really social justice. And of course, social justice must be seen in the view of how scripture gives it, because it's only the Bible's teaching that fits the way our world works. And trust me, some of the people, or probably most of the people who would have said the church is judging us, who is the church to judge us, are now part of the mob mentality, this cancel culture group. Yeah. They are now judging people and canceling people out. But they were against the church, telling people what to do. But they are now in this group telling other people what not to do. So that kind of ideology itself is self-suicidal. It dies on its own. I want you guys to bring in your final closing comments on cancel culture as we wrap up. And it's been a wonderful conversation, but the time is ticking.
I can start.
Okay, let's start with you, Stephanie.
I think with the whole idea of cancel culture, it's good to, if you're going to agree with someone, to actually disagree with another. You need the whole facts. And for you to only take someone's opinion and run with it, you're doing yourself a disservice, because at the end, when the, what's that phrase called? When the stuff hits the fan, you're going to be scattered for the facts when you should have been doing your research from the beginning. So don't just take somebody's opinion or isolate someone just based on opinion. It's very important for you to also understand why you personally are going to isolate or disagree with someone. So yeah, that's one thing I'll say.
Awesome. Yeah, who want to go next?
I'll go next. I would say take time to challenge your perspectives and your opinions and your thoughts. Try and understand, why do you think the way that you do? Where did you get this thought from? How did it develop? So I think having that due diligence and reflection on oneself would be very helpful as you navigate challenging topics in today's society. And as a Christian, I think it's even more so important that we have a good grasp of our thoughts and our opinions, and why do we believe the things that we believe. Don't just be a Christian just for, saying sake. Like, do you even understand like what you are preaching, talking about? You are just following this idea that you have, I guess, been given by birth or by recent acceptance of Christ. But take time to understand why you think the way you think the way you think. So I'll leave you with that.
Wonderful. Daniel.
My closing statement is going to be the best way to educate oneself and to educate others is to weigh truth against multiple perspectives. Your own perception may not be the whole truth, but perspective definitely gives you a different light of that. And if you are not able to have a full, deeper understanding for yourself, there's no way that you can defend or teach someone else in that same regard.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all for the perspective that you brought to this discussion. So cancel culture, we've said a lot about it. I think it's people trying to seek, having a public desire for correctness, right? They see some wrong in the system. They think they're pushing for social justice. They actually think they're the right guys doing the right thing. But that's not necessarily what's happening. They are trying to be part of this community that will have some kind of moral solidarity for somebody that makes them feel good. So it's about the self, because they use revenge to push for the good, something the scriptures doesn't accept. We don't use, it's like an eye for eye type of correcting people. So that is what we want to take. But then also I see that when we engage in cancel culture, it has some kind of negative effects, right? We will not trust each other anymore. Or it will be a type of suppression. Or because somebody has been canceled, I'm afraid that I too will be canceled. So I think Christian leaders and parents must even look into how to empower their children. So when they go to university campuses, they will be able to share their faith and stand their ground. Because if you share your faith, you can be canceled. And so if your parents or Christian leaders don't know you're being canceled for saying there are two genders because you're Christian, how do you deal with that? Maybe we should do an episode another time on how to defend your faith in the face of being canceled. So that people, so that people are empowered. So if we engage in cancel culture, it will lead to ignorance. A lot of people will become ignorant in our culture because they will not speak up. And of course, they will be afraid. So it brings to mind Jesus' allusion to a text in Deuteronomy about when the woman was brought to Jesus and said that this woman has committed adultery. And Jesus went down and started writing on the ground. He said, he who is without sin should cast the stone. Because the law says that if we catch somebody, the person who caught the one in the act must be the first to cast the stone. Mm-hmm. And then there must be two other witnesses. The second and the third stone must come. And then after that, those who heard it and came around must cast the remainder of the stones. So Jesus says, he who is without sin, cast the first stone. Now we have people engaging in cancel culture, casting stones, when they themselves are with sin and they don't qualify to stone people. So that's what cancel culture is doing for us. Thank you all so very much for joining us on this episode of the Unsettled podcasts. Remember to join us next time. Please remember to subscribe and follow us on social media. This podcast is available on all platforms, on YouTube, and on our website, liveunsettled.org. Until next time, God bless you.